Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin with a question that cuts straight to the heart. Have you ever wondered why the more kind you are, the more some people seem to take you for granted? Why is it that the very quality that makes us noble, kindness, sometimes becomes the doorway to disrespect? Kindness without wisdom becomes weakness, because true kindness was never meant to be blind, careless, or without discernment. Many people misunderstand kindness as simply saying yes to everyone, being available all the time, or giving without limit. But kindness, when stripped of wisdom, can turn into a tool others use against you. Wisdom is what gives kindness its strength, its balance, and its proper application. Without it, kindness makes you vulnerable to abuse, manipulation, and disrespect. People who lack wisdom in their kindness often confuse generosity with self-sacrifice, patience with tolerance of mistreatment, and love with servitude. They believe that if they keep giving and giving, people will appreciate them more, but in reality, human nature tends to take advantage of what is freely available without boundaries. When you offer kindness without discernment, it sends an unspoken message that your time, energy, and value have no limits. Others begin to see your kindness as a weakness rather than a strength, as an obligation rather than a gift. Wisdom teaches us that kindness is not about pleasing everyone, but about helping people in ways that uplift both them and you. It reminds us that love without truth leads to lies, patience without limits leads to exploitation, and generosity without boundaries leads to emptiness. For example, imagine a person who constantly lends money to friends or family out of kindness, yet never says no. Instead of being respected, they are soon treated as a bank. The kindness that once came from a pure heart is reinterpreted as gullibility. The same happens when someone always says yes to extra work at their job, covering shifts, taking on more responsibilities, all to be helpful. At first, it looks like dedication, but without wisdom, that kindness turns into exploitation, where others dump their duties on them without a second thought. Wisdom protects kindness by setting limits. It says, I will help you, but not at the expense of my dignity. It understands that kindness is powerful when it empowers, not when it enables. A wise person knows when to say yes and when to say no, when to give and when to withhold, when to stay silent and when to speak up. This does not make the person less kind, but rather it makes their kindness more valuable, more respected, and more impactful. For kindness to be effective, it must be intentional, not automatic. Otherwise, people will interpret it as weakness. And instead of appreciating your good heart, they will see an opportunity to exploit your generosity. The strength of kindness is measured by the wisdom guiding it. Wisdom transforms kindness from mere niceness into true compassion, from weakness into strength, from vulnerability into influence. Without wisdom, kindness leaves you drained, unappreciated, and disrespected. With wisdom, kindness uplifts others while preserving your own value and dignity. Unprotected kindness leads to abuse, because when people see unlimited generosity without any guardrails, they often interpret it as permission to take advantage. Kindness is a beautiful virtue that can open doors, heal hearts, and build strong relationships. But when it is left exposed without boundaries, it attracts those who see it not as a gift, but as an opportunity for personal gain. Human nature tends to exploit what is consistently available without cost. If someone is always kind, always forgiving, always available, and never sets limits, others begin to assume that such kindness is not special but automatic. and they start expecting it as a right instead of appreciating it as a blessing. This is where the danger lies, because what was meant to reflect strength of character gets twisted into an invitation for manipulation. Abuse does not always come in physical or verbal forms. It often begins with subtle exploitation of a kind person's willingness to help. Consider the individual who always says yes to requests, even when those requests are unreasonable or draining. At first, they may be praised for their kindness, but soon people stop asking if it is convenient and simply expect compliance. The more they give, the more others demand, until the kind person finds themselves overextended, unappreciated, and used. Their kindness, instead of inspiring gratitude, has become fuel for entitlement. In workplaces, families, or friendships, people who show kindness without protecting it often carry everyone's burdens, while their own needs are ignored. The issue is not kindness itself, but the lack of protection around it. Protection comes in the form of boundaries, discernment, and self-respect. Boundaries communicate to others that while you are willing to help, you are not a resource to be drained without limit. Discernment helps you distinguish between those who genuinely need support and those who simply want to exploit generosity. Self-respect reminds you that your worth is not measured by how much you give away, but by how well you steward your own energy, time, and values. Without these protective measures, kindness turns into a trap where others take more and more, leaving the giver exhausted and disrespected. The tragedy is that unprotected kindness does not only hurt the giver, it also damages relationships. When people take advantage of kindness, resentment eventually builds in the heart of the one giving. What was once an act of joy becomes a burden. Trust is eroded, and the relationship begins to feel one-sided. In time, the kind person either burns out or withdraws completely, and the opportunity for genuine connection is lost. Ironically, the very kindness that was supposed to strengthen relationships ends up weakening them because it was not guarded. Protecting kindness does not mean becoming harsh, selfish, or unapproachable. It means recognizing the value of your generosity and ensuring that it is not squandered by those who refuse to respect it. True kindness uplifts others while maintaining dignity for the giver. It empowers people rather than enabling laziness or entitlement. When kindness is protected with boundaries, people learn to appreciate it, honor it, and not take it for granted. When it is left unprotected, it almost inevitably attracts abuse, leaving the giver hurt and the relationship unbalanced. Boundaries define your value because they communicate to the world how you expect to be treated, what you will allow, and what you will not tolerate. Every person has worth, but if that worth is not expressed through clear boundaries, others will often underestimate or even disregard it. Boundaries are not walls that keep people out. They are guidelines that teach people where respect begins and where disrespect is not permitted. When you have boundaries, people understand that your kindness is a choice, not a weakness, and your presence is a privilege, not something to be abused. Without boundaries, even good intentions can be taken advantage of, and people may begin to treat you as though your time, energy, and emotions have no value. Boundaries are like price tags on items in a store. When you see a high-value item, the price communicates its worth and the conditions required to obtain it. If there were no price tags, people could simply take what they wanted without regard for the true value of the item. In the same way, if you live without boundaries, people will treat you as though you are free to be used, consumed, or taken for granted. But when you establish boundaries, you are silently declaring that your time is valuable, your emotions are important, and your life has meaning. People who respect you will honor those boundaries, and people who do not will reveal themselves by attempting to cross them. Consider relationships where one person never says no. They are always available, always giving, always accommodating, even when it hurts them. At first, people may see this as generosity, but over time it becomes expectation. Others stop asking if it is convenient, stop appreciating the sacrifice, and begin to demand more. The absence of boundaries erases the person's value in the eyes of others, because what is always accessible is rarely treasured. On the other hand, when someone sets boundaries and says, "I cannot do this right now," or "I deserve to be treated with respect," they are reminding the world that their value cannot be overlooked. Boundaries are also essential for protecting your inner peace. When you allow people to speak to you disrespectfully, take advantage of your time, or drain your energy without consequence, you are essentially telling them that your peace does not matter. But when you set limits, you reinforce your worth not only to others, but also to yourself. You begin to see that saying, "No does not make you unkind, it makes you wise." It preserves your strength so that when you do give, your kindness comes from a place of abundance rather than exhaustion. Furthermore, boundaries help to filter relationships. They reveal who truly respects you and who is only interested in what they can get from you. A person who walks away when you set boundaries was never committed to valuing you. They were committed to using you. A person who stays and honors your limits shows that they see your worth beyond what you can provide. This filtering effect saves you from wasting time and energy on unhealthy relationships and allows you to invest in those that are genuine and respectful. Your value is not defined by how much you give, how often you say yes, or how much you tolerate. It is defined by your ability to honor yourself while giving to others. Boundaries are the voice of self-respect, and they ensure that others recognize your life, your time, and your heart as treasures, not tools to be exploited. When kindness becomes expected, disrespect begins, because the moment people stop seeing your generosity as a gift and start treating it as a duty, the beauty of kindness is replaced with entitlement. Kindness was never designed to be demanded. It was designed to be appreciated. But when others begin to assume that you will always give, always forgive, always sacrifice, they stop valuing your heart and start taking you for granted. But what was once received with gratitude now becomes an expectation, and over time, expectation evolves into disrespect. Disrespect begins in small ways. At first, people stop saying thank you. Then they stop asking if it is convenient for you to help. Soon, they begin to demand what you once gave freely. It is no longer seen as an act of love or compassion, but as your obligation. This shift in perception devalues your actions and reduces your kindness to nothing more than a duty in the eyes of others. The giver begins to feel unappreciated, used, and overlooked, while the receiver fails to recognize the sacrifice being made. What was once pure becomes poisoned by the absence of gratitude. The danger lies in the fact that human nature tends to exploit what is consistently available. If people know they can rely on your kindness without question, they will begin to test how far it can go. They will stretch your patience, take more than you offer, and assume that you will never draw a line. This is how expectation slowly erodes respect. Instead of valuing your willingness to give, they see it as your responsibility to provide. In their minds, your kindness becomes the standard, and anything less feels like a betrayal, even though it was never promised in the first place. When kindness is treated as an obligation, the relationship dynamic shifts. The giver becomes burdened while the receiver becomes careless. The imbalance creates frustration, resentment, and eventually distance. It is not that the giver wants to stop being kind, but the lack of appreciation makes kindness feel empty. Every act of generosity should carry weight, but when it is expected, it loses its meaning. It no longer inspires gratitude, but breeds entitlement. And entitlement is the root of disrespect. To prevent this, kindness must be paired with boundaries and balance. True kindness flourishes where there is recognition, respect, and reciprocity. When people know that your kindness has limits, they treat it with greater care. They understand that it is a choice you are making, not an endless supply they can demand. A kind heart is a precious gift, and gifts are to be valued, not exploited. By setting boundaries, you remind others that your kindness is not guaranteed, and therefore it must never be taken for granted. Relationships, whether personal or professional, thrive on mutual respect. Gratitude keeps kindness alive, while expectation slowly kills it. When people respect you, they will see your kindness as something valuable, rare, and worthy of honor. When they do not, they will consume it until nothing is left. The truth is, kindness should inspire appreciation, not entitlement. The moment it becomes expected, it begins to lose its power, and disrespect quietly takes its place. Balance kindness with firmness, because true strength is not found in being harsh, nor in being overly gentle, but in knowing when to extend compassion and when to stand your ground. Kindness alone, if unchecked, can make others feel entitled to your generosity, while firmness without kindness can make you appear cold and unapproachable. The power lies in the harmony of both. When you are kind yet firm, people understand that while you are willing to help and show grace, you will not compromise your dignity, values, or self-respect in the process. This balance protects you from exploitation while still allowing you to uplift others. Kindness is often associated with softness, patience, and giving, but if it exists without firmness, it can be misinterpreted as weakness. People may begin to think that your yes is automatic, that your silence is approval, and that your tolerance has no end. This is where firmness steps in as the safeguard. Firmness is the voice that says, I am willing to help, but I have limits. It communicates to others that your kindness is intentional, not endless, and that your goodwill should not be mistaken for a lack of boundaries. Without this firmness, kindness is vulnerable to being trampled on, and over time it can drain the giver emotionally, physically, and mentally. On the other hand, firmness without kindness leads to rigidity and fear. A person who is only firm creates distance because their strength lacks warmth. People may obey or comply with them, but they will not be inspired or drawn to them. Kindness softens firmness, making it approachable and respected. Together, they create an environment where people feel safe, valued, and understood, while also recognizing that limits exist and must not be crossed. Balancing the two requires wisdom. It means knowing when to extend grace and when to enforce boundaries. For example, in leadership, an effective leader must be compassionate enough to understand the struggles of their team, but firm enough to hold them accountable for their responsibilities. In relationships, a partner must be kind enough to support and care, but firm enough to refuse disrespect or neglect. In everyday life, this balance means being generous with your time and energy, but not allowing others to waste or misuse it. One of the greatest misconceptions is that saying no makes you unkind. In reality, saying no at the right time is an act of wisdom that preserves the purity of your kindness. By being firm, you protect your ability to remain kind without being drained or devalued. People will respect your generosity more when they see that it is offered by choice, not by compulsion. They will understand that your kindness is genuine, not forced, and that it carries true value. This balance also teaches others how to treat you. If you are only kind, they may overlook your boundaries. If you are only firm, they may fear your presence. But if you embody both, they will honor your kindness while respecting your authority. People will know they can approach you for support, but they will also know they cannot take advantage of you. That combination earns not only respect, but also lasting trust. To balance kindness with firmness is to master the art of influence. It means you can love others deeply without losing yourself, give generously without being exploited, and remain approachable without being disrespected. It is this balance that transforms kindness from fragility into strength and firmness, from severity into wisdom. Kindness with respect is power, because kindness alone, while noble, can often be misunderstood or undervalued if it is not accompanied by a sense of self-worth. When kindness flows from a place of strength and self-respect, it becomes far more impactful and commands the admiration of others. Kindness by itself can sometimes be mistaken for weakness, but when it is rooted in respect, it shows that your generosity is not forced, nor is it limitless, but rather a conscious choice from someone who values themselves. This is what gives kindness its true authority and influence. It is no longer just an act of compassion, but a demonstration of character that leaves a lasting impression. Respect elevates kindness from mere niceness to true empowerment. It ensures that while you are extending grace and generosity to others, you are not compromising your own dignity. For example, imagine someone who always helps others, but never allows themselves to be mistreated in the process. Their kindness shines, but so does their firmness. People around them know that their good heart is genuine, but they also know it should never be taken for granted. That combination of warmth and strength is what makes others admire them, listen to them, and even follow them. This is why kindness with respect becomes power. It transforms how others perceive you and how they respond to you. When kindness lacks respect, people may begin to misuse it. They may see it as endless availability, a weakness to exploit, or an obligation they are owed. But when kindness is paired with respect, it becomes clear that it is not given out of fear, guilt, or compulsion. It is a reflection of strength, discipline, and intentional choice. Such kindness commands appreciation, not exploitation. People understand that when you give, it is because you choose to, not because you have to, and that awareness elevates the value of your kindness in their eyes. Kindness with respect is also powerful because it inspires. People are drawn to those who are kind, but they are influenced by those who combine that kindness with a sense of self-worth. A person who respects themselves while extending kindness teaches others by example. They demonstrate that you can be compassionate without being taken advantage of, generous without being drained, patient without being abused. This balance creates influence, because people do not just see kindness, they see wisdom, strength, and integrity behind it. In leadership, relationships, or personal growth, the individuals who leave the strongest impact are not those who are only kind or only firm, but those who bring both qualities together. They make others feel valued while also ensuring that their own value is never overlooked. That balance earns trust and admiration, which are the foundation of true power. It is not power that controls or dominates, but power that inspires, uplifts, and transforms. Kindness with respect is power because it allows you to give without losing yourself, to love without being diminished, and to serve without being enslaved. It turns acts of compassion into acts of influence, and it ensures that your generosity builds both others and yourself at the same time. It is this combination that makes kindness unshakable, respected, and undeniably powerful.